We're going to introduce Al Vidovic today. He actually manages our office. Okay, he's the founder and CEO of Apple Wisdom here locally. We are an Apple office, and after you hear him speak, you'll understand why we decided to go Mac versus PC. I am going to bring up Al Vidovic to kick us off. Let's welcome Al Vidovic. Hey.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Al Vidovic, and I'm the IT manager for Dan Krug and Associates. My company's called Apple Wisdom, and I've been doing this for about 18 years. Dan asked me to talk to you today about security in general with emphasis on cloud misconfiguration. If you guys have questions, please ask them, because this is technical stuff. Don't feel like I don't want to ask a question because I don't want to sound like I don't know this. It doesn't matter. We're here as a family to learn. No one's going to know that you didn't know. I mean, that's why you're here. So please ask. There's no silly questions, believe me. So
He gets a lot of silly ones from me, but there won't be.
Yeah, it's shocking, but I do. I had one client years ago call me on the phone. He didn't know how to use his mouse. And so I had to try remotely to talk to him how to use a mouse. So I get questions like that. So it's not a big deal. So anyways, in this presentation, we're going to examine 9 security risks and review how they're typically addressed across the tech industry and highlight how Apple goes further by embedding strong security standards throughout its ecosystem. Why Apple? Apple is an integrated company that builds security deeply into its hardware, software, and cloud services. So it really doesn't rely on outside vendors to secure their products and services like other companies. They do everything. Apple also layers hardware, software, networking, and privacy protections together. You can think of it like having locks and vaults, alarms, all working simultaneously. And basically that protects your data and secures all your data. And you don't need a lot of expertise in order to be able to utilize that. And this is going to play an important role in addressing the vulnerabilities that we're about to discuss. Our first vulnerability is malware and ransomware. Malware is any malicious type of software, whether it's a virus, a worm, a Trojan, if you will. But ransomware is a type of a virus, and it infects your computer, and it scrambles and encrypts all your data, so you can't read it, and then it asks for a ransom. It's really interesting. I had a company call me out of Ann Arbor years ago, and they tried to log into their QuickBooks server to access their QuickBooks, and they couldn't do it. So I drove to the company. I got into their QuickBooks server and realized that everything was encrypted. There's nothing I could read. Every file was encrypted. And there was a flashing banner on the desktop that was saying that all your data has been encrypted. You need to send $20,000 to this crypto address. And they gave us a Proton email to communicate back and forth. I had to contact a company out of Chicago that deals with this type of threats. They were able to be the middleman and negotiate with these hackers, and they brought the price down from $20,000 to $6,000. And so they gave us the unencryption key. I put the unencryption key in, sure, everything came back. We obviously moved that server out of commission, set up a new server, and put the QuickBooks, and he was up and running. But he lost a week's worth of work and $6,000. So it can be pretty substantial. Nowadays, this was maybe 8-10 years ago, we're looking into hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. So if you have a big company and your system goes down, there's nothing you can do. You're going to have to pay the ransomware. So it's really important to protect yourselves against that. And the best way is obviously to keep your antivirus and endpoint protection up to date. That's number one. If the operating system doesn't have some type of protection, it's definitely worth getting antivirus and anti-malware protection. So you want to make sure that that's up to date so it doesn't lapse and create issues. There's a thing called application whitelisting where you can actually whitelist certain applications on your computer to run and filter other ones. And if you're a high-profile target, that's probably something important to do. We'll talk about how Apple deals with that in a second. Regular backups, whether you're doing a local backup, off-site backup, or cloud backup. So does anyone know what cloud backups are? Okay, so basically you're backing up your data to the cloud. If you have a cloud account, it's superfluous because it's on the cloud. So if you have a Microsoft Office, for example, OneDrive or Google Drive, that's already on the cloud, so you don't really need to back that up. So we talked about backups. So the client or the company that called me from Ann Arbor, if they would have backed up their server, they would have been fine. Because we could have set up another QuickBooks server, restored it from a backup within 2 hours, he would have been up and running. He never backed up his QuickBooks server, which is ludicrous because he was down for so long. I looked at his backup drive that he had before, and it was 18 months ago that he backed up. That was the last time he backed up, a year and a half. So again, how important is it? Backups are very important. If you're a business, absolutely you want to back up. You can also, larger companies will segment their networks. So if their network gets corrupted, it will only affect that segment of the network. And here's, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but this is a typical example of a network segmentation where you actually use a firewall to create what are called virtual pipelines. They're called VLANs. And then you segment your network. So for example, this switch will power all the wall outlets of an office. So all the computers that are connected here are going to be on this pipeline. All the servers will be connected to that switch, and all the wireless access points, for example, here. So if this system gets corrupt through some type of virus or malware, it just brings this down. The rest of these network stays viable. So it really limits the blast zone of infections. This is, again, for larger companies that have the infrastructure and the budget to segment a network. But I just want you to know that's another way that you can protect your assets. The way Apple treats ransomware is that all apps at the App Store have to be reviewed by Apple, and they have to be notarized. So there's a huge vetting process. If you want to write software for Apple, it's very difficult. Like I said, they have to be signed and notarized, so that means they're free of malware. It's almost impossible to write software for Apple and put it at the App Store that would have malware because of that type of security. Sandboxing, this is really a very clever part of the operating system. When you run an application on your Mac computer, it stays in this container. I call it a sandbox. So every application that launches will stay in its own little sandbox. So they can't cross-contaminate. So if you do have a corruption or some type of infection on one of the applications, only the application gets corrupt. It doesn't infect the operating system, so it's very safe. So it's a great way to utilize these security protocols. Xprotect, most people don't realize, is a malware removal that's embedded in the operating system for Apple. So you don't even have to get a third-party malware software because it's built into the Apple system. It constantly updates and removes malware in the background. Gatekeeper is a part of the operating system that when you launch an application, Gatekeeper is going to look at that. Remember we talked about how they have to notarize the apps in order to be on the App Store? Well, Gatekeeper, when an application launches, it checks for that notarization ticket. If it's not notarized, it won't launch the app. So again, you're protected because you can't launch unnotarized apps. This has become really, really popular because as systems get more sophisticated and strong filters are in place, hackers can't get in as easy as they used to. So they rely on the weakest link in the equation. That's us. We've all been vulnerable. I've been vulnerable. I've responded to all kinds of phishing attacks. So phishing is basically social engineering where they try to engage you in one way or another. And these people, they'll either call you, send you a text, or send an email, and they're professionals at eliciting information from you. I've had so many clients in the 18 years I've been doing this. They said, hey, I was just talking to somebody because I got an email. They got into my computer because they said I have these viruses and they're working on it right now.
I even went and got my charge card because I was going to. Yeah, I know. And
Yeah.
I stopped before I gave the number.
So the first thing is stop and think because it's really important.
He said he had my screen right.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And what they do when you let them in your computer, because first they scare you. We have to take care of it. We're going to take care of it. Don't worry about it. You give them access. So while they're pretending they're fixing your computer. There's nothing wrong with your computer, by the way. While they pretend, and you'll see them doing some activity stuff, they're actually siphoning the data from your computer. They're looking at your documents, at your downloads, at your desktop for any type of financial. So if you have a folder called finance, where you keep all your data, or passwords for that matter, they're pulling that. So as they're engaging you and time is going by, I had a client tell me, yeah, I was on the phone 2 hours. I'm like, what? What were they doing for 2 hours? They can also install software so they can remote in without your supervision later on. So stop and think, really important for that. Emails, check the sender. Who is it coming from? So if, let's say, for example, and I've got a slide here, the next slide, is if it says this is a bill from PayPal, and you look at the address and it says PayPal, if you actually click on it, it's going to reveal where it's coming from. I got this just a couple weeks ago. It's a PayPal bill because I bought Bitcoin. Obviously, I never bought Bitcoin, but they told me I did, and it's $455. The important thing is urgency. They say you have 24 hours to respond. Now, PayPal doesn't tell you that, but again, it scares you. And so I got to respond, call this number. They want to engage you. So never, ever call the number. The address is supposed to be paypal.com. When I clicked on the address, Christina Mendoza at Yahoo, that's not PayPal. So I knew this was bogus. Improper English. If you read it, their text, their grammar is pathetic. So most of these are from overseas. Sometimes they try to be overly polite. That one's not a good example, but I have some saying, God bless you, have a blessed day. PayPal is not going to tell you that. They don't care. They just want your money, you know? So that's a red flag. Here's a legitimate bill from PayPal. There's no urgency, you know, there's no improper English. They just want my money. And that's just a receipt. When I clicked on the PayPal, it reveals it's PayPal. So this is key. Always click on the sender and it will reveal who it is. Here's another one that's bogus. This is for a crypto wallet, a Ledger wallet. I don't own a Ledger wallet. I own a different wallet. So I knew this was fake. Again, urgency, respond by September 30th. Also, when I clicked on the sender, Ledger security, it reveals that it's from this Coro Power, blah, 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 at JP. JP is a Japan extension. So that's not obviously valid. So again, stop and think. If it looks, don't respond. So yeah, I'm going to read this to you because this is the improper English. Our team is constantly working hard to ensure your assets are never stolen and remain safe forever. Give yourself peace of mind by completing this update and securing your crypto assets. This is the first ever secure firmware in the world. I mean, that's ludicrous, you know. Text messages. They're so professional. The way they send them, they're very benign. All they want to do is engage with you. So for this first one I received, these are all, by the way, in the last few weeks, and I could have probably 50 of these. This one says, I hope you're treated kindly. So what do you do as a nice person? You respond and say, I'm sorry, you have the wrong number. Wrong. Because now they got you. They know you're a working phone number. Now you made a database. Okay? So I'm going to show you a way to delete these. But notice they're all different area codes. I don't know these area codes. Obviously, I don't know these people. So again, they're designed for social engagement. And I'll tell you, these people are professionals. And it's not necessarily one individual. It could be a company that has a room like this, and they're all making phone calls. So they're extorting hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's not just some person in whatever country. It could be a company doing that. When you use Safari and you enter a website, let's say you got an email that says, click on this website, Chase Manhattan, okay? Safari will detect that it's a counterfeit because there are these internal checks. And so it's gonna warn you that you're entering a malicious site or one that's pretending to be somebody else. And so that's a nice feature of the Safari browser, so you're being protected so that you're not clicking on that website or entering that website. Apple has these mail protections built in. Keep in mind, all your emails nowadays, modern day emails, whether it's Microsoft, Exchange, or you're using Apple or you're using Google, they have filters built in. They're really well. Unless you're a high profile target, you may want to add a different filter, an add-on service from Microsoft, for example, that does more filtering. But aside from that, it's pretty good. One of the features that Apple does, it hides tracking pixels. Did you know that when you get an email, somebody can have a piece of software on the sender side that will tell them exactly the date, time, and your location when you open the email. So you can be tracked. I didn't know that years ago. I'm like, really? And I learned that from a client. Yeah, they opened I go, how'd you know they opened your email? Why? I have the software, it tells me that. Because of the tracking pixels. So Apple removed that. They no longer can do that. Apple now is using passkeys, and passkeys basically are cryptographic keys. They are getting rid of passwords. So in the future, we're going to see no passwords. Insider threats, this is mostly for companies, but basically insider threats are people in your organization. Believe it or not, that's a huge threat. And the main reason is because they're already inside your organization. They have access to all your servers, for example. They have passwords, so they can take whatever data they want, people you trust, because they're working for you. So the best defense, whether it's a Mac or PC, is to apply what's called the least privilege access. So you want to give access to people, but very limited access, only what they need. So for example, it's like me giving you a key to your office, but not giving you the key to the entire building. So that's important to do that. The same thing applies for your cloud accounts. We talked about cloud misconfiguration, very important. If you give full access on your OneDrive, for example, or Google Drive, let's say you're a company, to everybody, they can do anything. Your whole company data it can be exposed because they have full admin privileges. So you have to be cautious about doing that and always apply that least privilege access. Also, when you do that, a lot of misconfiguration is people marking a directory or a folder as public. And that's really dangerous because the minute you make this public, it's open to the internet. So let's say you have OneDrive and you have a folder that's got all your company files, for example. There's a little checkbox because you have privileges to do so that you can check, make it public. Now it's public, it's open to the internet. What happens is Google crawlers will crawl that site, and now they index it. Now it's searchable on the internet. So somebody can do a search for whatever term, your documents could show up. Activity monitoring. So inside your organization, if something looks suspicious, somebody's doing something, you want to monitor that. And so I have here an example. If a finance employee starts downloading HR records, that's going to be a red flag. So you want to monitor that activity. I had an employee from a company call me one day and he says, hey, my computer's running really slow, Al. Can you help me out? So I logged into his computer and he had all these files and folders on the desktop. And as I moved them to figure out where the issue was, I saw all these files being uploaded to the internet. They were in queues, so it was like maybe 10 files, and I saw a process bar. I'm like, well, you've got a lot of data going to the cloud. You got to stop these uploads. That's what's killing your computer. And when I looked, I noticed that he was uploading all these company files that were actually blueprints to his private Google account. And I'm like, wow, this is weird. So I called the manager. I said, by the way, this guy's uploading all these your documents to the cloud. I don't know whatever happened, but 3 weeks later, he quit the company and opened up his own architectural firm. So, yeah, I mean, because they have inside access, you can't control it. And it looks like they're doing normal work activity, but they may not. So he was stealing blueprints, hundreds of blueprints. And of course, they're large files, so that's why his computer wasn't working. So again, just be cognitive, monitor things like that. Rotating credentials is important. You have a company, somebody leaves or changes position, change the credentials, change the password. So they no longer have access to the finance folder, only the HR folder. Insider threats, this is the way Apple combats them. There's a thing called Secure Enclave, and you can think of it as a little safe inside your computer, and it stores all your personal information, all your biometrics, all your passwords, all your passkeys, and nobody can read that except you. So somebody can't get in your computer and access that data. So this is a secure way that Apple tries to combat insider threats. Apple also implements least privilege architecture, least privilege in their architecture. So they don't give full access to the whole operating system. It's very limited. So this is a practice that they do. for giving limited access to their entire system. So you can't access another user's folder or directory in your computer because you're not allowed. Weak or stolen credentials. This is really important. The easiest to compromise a device with a weak password. You put in 1234 on your phone or computer. I mean, that's ridiculous. People have done that. I've had companies, Apple doesn't allow it anymore, but not have a password. Oh, we don't have passwords. I'm like, well, you really should. It's like leaving your front door of your house or your building open, you know? And so it's important. Use strong passwords. We recommend 8 characters minimum. The industry says 12 characters, alphanumerical. That one that you posted, the little, the characters, great example. You can do that. There's no rule you can't, you know? So important, and maybe it's a catchy phrase that you know, but it's important to do that. You can use password managers like 1Password or LastPass. Those allow you to store your passwords in an encrypted container, so it remembers all your passwords. Let's face it, nowadays we have hundreds of passwords. And so the password manager, you only have to remember 1 password. And it'll log you into all your websites. So your bank or whatever you're doing. Apple has Apple Password. It's built into the operating system and it's free. The other ones you have to pay for. Some of them are more enterprise, so you have a lot more features what you can do with it, but that's important. The other feature is 2-factor and multi-factor authentication. Have you guys heard of that? Okay, so basically 2-factor requires, besides a username and password, you may need your phone to get a text to validate it's you, or an authenticator app. So it requires another additional of information. It's imperative all accounts online should have minimum 2-factor authentication. I would, especially bank accounts, brokerage accounts, never use just username and password. If they support 2-factor, do it. In fact, it's getting so critical nowadays that 2-factor is going away and it's only going to be multi-factor authentication. You need another factor like a fingerprint or facial recognition or some kind of a digital key, but that's imperative. And I think we're going to be moving to multi-factor, and I'm fine with that because it protects all of us. So just know that that exists, and you should. If the website that you're in says, hey, we're recommending multi-factor or 2-factor, do it. Apple Passwords, we talked about that. It's a free password manager that's on Apple computers. It's an application basically, and it stores all your passwords. The nice thing, it syncs with your iCloud keychain. So your iCloud has a keychain on the cloud, which basically is an encrypted container that syncs with the password manager so that if you're using your phone or this laptop, for example, if I change a password here, it goes to the cloud, my keychain on the cloud, it changes or accepts the password and it pushes to my mobile device. So now if I use my mobile device to log into the specific website, it's already in sync. So that's a nice feature built into the Apple system. We talked about multi-factor authentication. Apple only uses multi-factor. There's nothing you can do on Apple that's not multi-factor. Passkeys eliminates passwords. Passkeys are really important, and I think the whole industry is going to move to passkeys. Passwords are going to be gone. So what you do, a website that supports passkeys, if you click on log me in with Apple, for example, and I'll show you an example, it will create 2 keys, a private key and a public key. They're huge alphanumerical characters. The private key goes to the website that you're logging into and stores it there. The private key goes to your device. So it'll stay on my mobile device or my computer. So the next time I log in, the 2 keys have to communicate with each other and say, oh yeah, there's a mathematical equation, and they talk to each other, now you're authenticated. Now, anybody sniffing the traffic, there's no passwords. And I have the key here, so it's very, very high security as far as utilizing that. So let's, I just want to show you quickly the password. This is Apple's password manager. This is the one I'm talking about that's free, part of the operating system. It stores all your passwords. Some of the nice features, you have all your passwords. You can see I got 1,100 passwords. The new passkeys stores it there so you can actually look at it. This is what I like. There's an algorithm that sniffs out all the passwords and it warns you, hey, these are compromised passwords. You have 933 compromised passwords, so you may want to think about changing them. That means they've been through a data leakage. Some website got hacked and your username and password was made public. Apple detects that, or if you used it too many times, it'll warn you. So now you can go in here, for example, and change your password. And now it syncs. The next time you log into that website, it'll pull it from this container and populate the database. So I went to GoPro, a website, and it has the typical email and password that I could create and log in. Now new is this continue with Apple. The minute you press continue with Apple, it'll start using passkeys. It'll generate the two keys, the public key, which gets stored on GoPro, and the private key, which gets stored on my device. Nobody has access. So this is the negotiation process. The next time I log in here, I won't populate these fields. I'll just say continue with Apple, and then it'll generate those keys and do the negotiation. But we've heard of zero-day exploits. Have you guys heard of that? All right, so I'll read this. A zero-day exploit is a cyber attack that takes advantage of a previously unknown software vulnerability. So if there's a vulnerability in a piece of software, they take advantage of writing malicious code. And 0 day basically means that the vendor has 0 days to patch it. They don't know that their software has a vulnerability in it. So let's say there's a piece of software out there and an attacker finds, hey, there's a back door. I can get in here and write code. And they do it. The vendor doesn't know about it yet. And so obviously the system can get compromised. So that's what 0 day means, is that they can exploit it because the vendor hasn't written a patch for it. This is the way Apple handles these type of patches. So let's say the Microsoft example. Microsoft discovers that they have an issue on their operating system. They have to talk to Dell. They have to talk to HP and say, hey, we have an issue with this part of our software. You guys we have to come up with a solution. They have to contact outside vendors because they don't make the whole system. Apple makes the whole system. They make the hardware, the software, they do everything. They don't have to contact anybody. So their engineers will do a quick patch and push it throughout the planet to all Apple devices immediately. So the response time, it could be hours or days. When you have to negotiate with multiple vendors, it could take weeks, it could take months to patch a critical flaw, especially if it's very complicated. So that's one of the strong advantages of the Apple system. They control everything, so they can push those updates, those patches immediately, globally. Automatic updates, again, Apple will push patches silently. There's no end user intervention. Any type of fixes, if they find bugs or improvements, they're going to go ahead and update your devices automatically. Microsoft does the same thing, so you can see updates, but a lot of times they'll warn you and you have to elect to do that. With Apple, it's pretty much automatic. So any app that you have on your phone or your computer from the App Store, they're always updated. DOS attacks, has anyone heard of that? These are brute force attacks, you've heard of that? Brute force attacks. This is really interesting. So you have a web service, let's say like Google Cloud or whatever. What these attackers do, they're gonna bombard your system with tons of traffic, whether it's login attempts or pings. They send so much traffic to bring your system down. Okay. Yeah, it's all cloud-based solutions. So whether it's Google or Microsoft, they're going to sit there and bombard it. Here's a little example. A DOS is denial of service. And so what you do is one computer will attack one service and try to bring it down. A distributed denial of service is hundreds, thousands, or millions of computers trying to bring that service down. Okay? It's a way to make a computer vulnerable so it can be attacked. So that's what it is. It's called a brute force attack, and it makes your system vulnerable. These are some of the major players that were victims in the last 5 years. I did a list of this through Google, and it was actually 3 times as long. I just cut it for simplicity here so you can see, but nobody's immune. I mean, Google, Microsoft, AWS is Amazon Web Service. I mean, these are big players, Twitter. So they've been attacked. And what they try to do is, there's reasons for that. One is to disrupt the company in order to ruin its reputation. So these people are just playing with that, and they'll try to bring your service down. So, oh, this is an unsecure company. Look we brought them down. Another reason is extortion. So they may ask for money, ransom, and say, hey, we'll stop the attack if you pay us $5 million, put it on this crypto wallet. The other one is diversion. They'll sit there and attack a system, but they'll attack this part of the system while they're trying to hack this other one. So as all the attention is being focused here, they're going here trying to exploit the system. And the last one is to protest. People may have a beef with your company, whether it's a political, economic, and say these guys aren't green or whatever, and so we're going to attack them. So it doesn't happen a lot or much with regular computers. Like you and I, probably we're not going to be a target of denial of service, being bombarded. Can it happen? Yeah. If somebody wants to target you and bring your computer down, they'll flood it with data, and then it can bring your computer down, and then it can be vulnerable to that. Apple has probably the largest infrastructure in the world as far as different servers and server farms. So what happens is when anyone tries to attack with brute force, it can absorb that. So if they have 30 terabytes of data being thrown to their cloud services, it can absorb it. And I use an analogy, if you're at a stadium and you have one door and you have 100,000 people trying to get in, now imagine if you had 50 or 100 doors, it lets the traffic flow. And really with the content delivery network that Apple has, it doesn't affect them. They can absorb that. So it's difficult to bring Apple services down. Imagine if all your text messages, texting is gone from Apple. That's a huge deal. Or their music stops, or their app store, you can't access anything. That's a huge deal. So they have filters and their infrastructure is really secure so they can absorb that because they have the money and the resources. So what we can do to protect ourselves on our little computer is turn on the firewall. It's intuitive enough to block any brute force attacks. So if your computer is being flooded with data, somebody just decided to target you, for example, say, I'm going to send you, 10,000 packets in 5 seconds. The firewall is intuitive enough to block those. So it helps mitigate that. We're probably not going to be victims of these type of attacks, but know that if you are, you can just turn on your firewall. And it'll help mitigate that. Mostly DOS is for large companies to try to bring big services down. Okay, man-in-the-middle attack, I want to really focus on this one. Man-in-the-middle attack is a hacker secretly sits between you and the servers you're trying to reach, like your bank account. Through a Wi-Fi hotspot and spies on your communication, the intruder mimics a website to draw you in to provide credentials and other information. Let's say you're at a coffee shop and it says, hey, free Wi-Fi, and you log into that Wi-Fi. It may not be the coffee's Wi-Fi. Somebody may be in a parking lot with a device that creates a free Wi-Fi and calls it free Wi-Fi, unsuspecting will say, hey, I'll just log into this free Wi-Fi. You just logged into that device. Everything you do on your computer now is going through their device. Now, they can intercept all your traffic. They can look at your passwords. They're listening in on everything. They can steal your sensitive data. They can manipulate. Let's say you're making a payment. They can actually change your payment because they have it. You're inside their system. And that's because you're utilizing that free Wi-Fi. The take home here is never use free Wi-Fi. Always use your phone if you need to surf. If I'm at the airport, I'll just use my phone, turn off Wi-Fi. I won't use their hotspots because somebody could be in the airport sitting in a chair next to you with their own little machine mimicking a free Wi-Fi, and then they take your information. So the take home is avoid free Wi-Fis. If you use a VPN service, utilize it. Virtual network private, it's an encrypted, a VPN creates an encrypted tunnel between my device and wherever I'm going to. It's a service that you have to subscribe to, and you can utilize it. So the minute I turn VPN on, it encrypts my traffic. So it can't be read, okay? But the thing here for man in the middle, know that it happens, that somebody's between you and your website. And so you can avoid that by just never using public Wi-Fi. Man in the middle attacks, this is the way Apple tries to mitigate and help you out. Again, Safari has all these different protocols built in that detects if you're going to a malicious website because it checks the certificate, the authenticity of the website, and it's going to tell you, hey, you're entering a fraudulent website. So let's say you went into that man in the middle and you're logged into their fake website. Safari will automatically warn you and say, this is a malicious website. So it gives you a little bit of information before you actually try to put in your credentials for that website. Again, really the bottom line, and I won't go into all these details, is don't use public Wi-Fis. Physical threats, we're going to kind of glance over this. This is basically to protect your physical hardware. If you're a company, you want to lock all your servers. Your server room should be locked, should have cameras on it. Only authorized personnel should go in and out. Big companies, you can't even go into their servers. They won't allow you. Or if you're allowed to go in, they're going to follow you and see what you're doing. So it's prudent. Your local devices, protect them. Don't leave a hard drive plugged in here. Take your computer home and then leave your hard drive, your backup hard drive sitting at the office when a cleaning person can grab it and take it. And all of a sudden, all your data is compromised. Simple things like that. Shred and wipe your devices. If you're going to recycle your computer or hard drive, shred it, erase it, clean erase it, because all your data is still there. Some people say, oh, my computer died, I'm going to recycle it. Well, the computer's there, but the hard drive still has your data. So somebody can just pull your data and say, oh, look, I've got all their information for the bank account, brokerage account. Encrypt your drives. You can encrypt, all your drives should be encrypted, which means that you can just tell the drive, encrypt yourself. There's software you can do that. Apple has built-in encryption called File Vault. You turn that on, it'll encrypt your drive. So that way, if somebody pulls your drive or steals your computer, they can't read it because it's encrypted. It's gibberish. So really important. You can remotely wipe your drives. Apple has a service called Find My Phone or Find Mine, which allows you to remotely wipe your devices. So if somebody steals your device, you can just send a code and say, wipe it, and I'll wipe it clean. That way it protects your information. One of the things, and I said you can use File Vault to encrypt your hard drive on a Mac. Actually, that's not true because disk encryption is always on. So when you open a Mac from its box, the disk is already encrypted. So there's nothing you have to do. When you turn File Vault on, it takes the encryption key and your password that you created and ties them together. So now the encryption key is tied to the user. But know that out of the box, all Mac computers have encrypted drives. Secure boot, when your computer is booting up, Apple has digital signatures for all the processes. Let's say a boot up process, there's 10 processes. Every process as it's booting up has to be verified with the Apple digital signature. If it fails the validation, the computer won't boot. So you can be 100% sure that your computer is booting up with only Apple software. So that's one of the nice securities. Find Mine, I talked about. You have that feature that you can wipe your devices remotely. Last thing is third-party risk management. This is pretty basic. It's just who comes into your environment. Whether you have a telephone company coming into your office, if they need access to your server, you want to know why. It's important. Video cameras, audio, video people. Just know if anyone comes into your system or your computer, you go to the Geek Squad. What are they doing? Are they safe? Oh, I got a guy that I called that works on computers down the road. I'm going to take it to them. Hunter's laptop, you take it to that place. How's your data safe? So it's important to vet your vendors for that reason alone. That comes to our conclusion. I know some of this is not that pertinent to you guys as an individual, but just know that they exist, these vulnerabilities. So with that, I thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead and close this up. We only have one upcoming event till the end of the year. Well, everybody has Christmas, but we're not really hosting it. We have the webinar coming up in November, Friday the 14th. You can see, again, everything on YouTube. Just go to our website. It's the easiest way to get to the YouTube channel. Click on Watch Us, DKNA YouTube, and it'll take you right there. Again, you guys don't have to worry about anything. We'll take care of everything for you. You just take care of your family, and I think we're going to have a wonderful holiday.